Picture this. The richest people on Earth, Gates, Bezos, Thiel, are all betting billions on the same frozen island. An island that most people couldn't even point to on a map. Greenland, a place covered in ice, home to just 56,000 people, and technically owned by Denmark. So why is Donald Trump saying he'll take it whether they like it or not? Why are tech billionaires using artificial intelligence to dig beneath its ice sheets? And why are they building something called Freedom Cities in one of the coldest places on the planet? Here's what nobody's telling you. Greenland isn't just land. It's the key to controlling the entire future economy. It's where the AI revolution will be powered, cooled, and built. And whoever owns it doesn't just own rocks and ice, they own the infrastructure of human intelligence itself. Stick with me until the end, because what's really happening in Greenland will change everything you thought you knew about power, technology, and who actually runs the world. Part 1. From Ice to Asset: How Greenland Became a Target. For decades, Greenland was just a dot on the map that military planners cared about. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't valuable in the way oil fields or gold mines were valuable. It was cold, remote, and expensive to operate in. But it had one thing going for it: location. Sitting between North America and Europe, right on top of the Arctic, Greenland was the perfect place to park radar stations, monitor Russian submarines, and control shipping routes that might open up as the ice melted. That was it. A military outpost, a strategic buffer, a place to keep an eye on the bad guys. But something changed. Somewhere in the last 10 years, the people with the most money and the most power stopped seeing Greenland as a buffer and started seeing it as an asset. Not just any asset, the single most important piece of real estate for the 21st century. And this shift didn't happen because of old-fashioned reasons like oil or territory. It happened because of artificial intelligence. According to the research dossier that's been circulating among analysts and insiders, America's obsession with Greenland is no longer about security in the traditional sense. It's about AI sovereignty. It's about making sure that the United States, and more specifically, a handful of American tech billionaires, control the resources, the infrastructure, and the geography needed to dominate the age of intelligent machines. Here's where it gets wild. For years, we've been told that melting ice is a tragedy, and it is for polar bears, for coastal cities, for the climate. But there's another story hiding under that narrative, a story that the people in power don't really talk about in public. Melting ice isn't just a tragedy, it's also an opportunity. As Greenland's ice sheets retreat, they reveal what's underneath: rock, minerals, and geological formations that have been locked away for millennia. Estimates cited in the dossier suggest that this melting could make accessible up to $4.4 trillion in resources. Trillion, with a T. We're not talking about timber or fish. We're talking about rare earth elements. These are metals with names most people have never heard: neodymium, dysprosium, praseodymium. They sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but they're very real and they're very valuable. These elements are used to build the magnets in electric car motors, the components in wind turbines, and most importantly, the guts of the highest performance computer chips on Earth, the chips that run AI. And here's the kicker. Greenland's geology suggests it holds some of the largest untapped reserves of these rare earth elements anywhere on the planet. For decades, nobody could get to them because they were buried under ice. But now, the ice is melting. The resources are becoming accessible, and the people who control those resources will control the hardware that runs the future. This isn't about claiming land for land's sake. It's not about planting a flag and feeling patriotic. It's about control. Control over the supply chain that builds intelligent machines. Control over the future economy. Because if you can't build the chips, you can't build the AI. And if you can't build the AI, you're obsolete. America isn't chasing land. America is chasing the ability to stay relevant in a world where intelligence, artificial intelligence, is the most valuable commodity on Earth. And Greenland is where that chase begins. Part 2. The AI Gold Rush, Mining the Brains of the Future. Let's talk about who's actually leading this charge. You've probably heard of Kobold Metals. If you haven't, you should pay attention, because they're at the center of this entire story. Kobold Metals is a startup, but not just any startup. It's backed by some of the richest, most powerful people on the planet: Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Michael Bloomberg, all through a fund called Breakthrough Energy. Also in the mix, Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most influential venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. So what does Cobalt Metals do? They use artificial intelligence to find minerals. Specifically, they use massive machine learning models. Think ChatGPT, but for geology, to scan data about the Earth's subsurface and predict where valuable minerals are hiding. Traditional geological surveys involve drilling, sampling, taking measurements by hand. It's slow, expensive, and often wrong. Cobalt's AI can do in weeks what used to take years, and right now they're using that AI to map what's beneath Greenland's ice. Their mission is simple: find the rare earth elements before anyone else does. Why does this matter? Because these rare earth elements aren't just important, they're critical. We're talking about the backbone of modern technology. Neodymium, for example, is used to make the super strong magnets that go into hard drives, electric motors, and the actuators that control robots. Dysprosium helps those magnets work at high temperatures, which is essential for military tech and high-performance electronics. But here's the part that most people miss. These elements aren't just for green energy. That's the public story. Solar panels, wind turbines, electric cars, all true. But the real use, the use that the tech elite actually cares about, is AI hardware. The chips that train large language models, the processors that run autonomous vehicles, the circuits that power humanoid robots. All of them need rare earth elements. And who controls the supply of these elements? China. Specifically, China controls about 90% of the world's rare earth processing. They mine it, they refine it, they sell it. If you're a tech company in the United States and you want to build cutting-edge AI, you are dependent on Beijing. Completely. That's the nightmare scenario for Silicon Valley. Imagine being Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk and knowing that your entire business model, your robots, your data centers, your AI assistants, depends on a metal that only China knows how to process at scale. One trade war, one diplomatic conflict, one embargo, and your supply chain collapses. Greenland is the only realistic way to break that monopoly. It's the only place outside of China with enough rare earth reserves to matter. If the US can secure Greenland, they can build their own supply chain free from Chinese control. They can mine the minerals, process them locally, and feed them directly into American chip fabs and AI labs. So when you hear people talk about a green energy transition, that's the cover story. The real story is about AI chips, robotics, and military automation. It's about making sure that the machines of the future are built with American minerals on American terms. The narrative thread here is simple but terrifying. Control the minerals, and you control the hardware. Control the hardware, and you control the intelligence. Control the intelligence, and you control everything. Part 3. The cooling paradise where AI goes to survive. Now let's talk about something that sounds boring but is actually the secret weapon: temperature. Here's a fact that most people don't know. Cooling costs make up about 40% of a data center's energy bill in normal climates. 40%. When you run a massive AI model, something like GPT-4 or Claude or whatever comes next, those servers generate an insane amount of heat. We're talking about chips running full throttle, 24/7, consuming as much power as a small city. And all that power turns into heat. If you don't cool those servers down, they melt, literally. So what do data centers do? They run industrial air conditioning systems. They pump chilled water through the server racks. They install cooling towers the size of office buildings. And all of that costs money. Lots of money. And it uses energy. Lots of energy. Now imagine you could skip all of that. Imagine you could put your data center somewhere so cold that you didn't need air conditioning at all. Somewhere you could just open a window, or better yet, pump in seawater and cool your servers for free. That place is Greenland. In Greenland, the average temperature hovers near or below freezing for most of the year. The ocean is cold, the air is cold, everything is cold. For a data center, that's paradise. You can use something called ambient air cooling, which is exactly what it sounds like. You blow cold outside air over your servers. Or you can use seawater cooling, where you pump ocean water through heat exchangers. Either way, your cooling costs drop to near zero. Think about what that means. If cooling is 40% of your costs in California or Virginia, and you can cut that to almost nothing in Greenland, you just made your AI models 40% cheaper to run. In an industry where every fraction of a cent per computation matters, that's a massive advantage. But it's not just about saving money, it's about scale. The AI models of the future are going to be bigger, hungrier, and hotter than anything we've seen so far. They're going to need more power and more cooling than any existing grid can provide, If you try to build those models in the United States, you run into a problem. The power grid is already strained. Rolling blackouts in California, overloaded transformers in Texas. There just isn't enough capacity. Greenland solves that problem. Greenland has massive untapped hydroelectric potential, rivers fed by melting glaciers, geothermal energy bubbling up from volcanic activity beneath the ice. You could build gigawatt-scale power plants and never touch the US grid. You could run AI clusters completely off-grid, in the middle of nowhere, powered by renewable energy that nobody else is using. This is the narrative shift that changes everything. It's not about land. It's about energy plus temperature plus isolation. Greenland isn't just a location. It's an off-grid battery for artificial intelligence. It's a place where you can build the biggest, most powerful computational systems in the world without worrying about brownouts or cooling bills or nosy regulators. The public story is that tech companies want to help Greenland by bringing jobs and investment. The hidden story, the one outlined in the dossier, is that they're building AI fortresses, massive computational complexes, buried in the ice, running models that will shape the future of medicine, warfare, finance, and governance. And the people who control those fortresses will control the future economy. Whoever controls computation controls everything. Part 4. Freedom Cities, the Billionaire State. Okay, so we've got the minerals, we've got the cooling. Now let's talk about the political engineering. There's a screenshot floating around that claims billionaires have been building a footprint in Greenland since Trump's first term, and while some of that is speculation, there's a very real movement happening in Silicon Valley right now that makes it plausible. It's called the Network State movement, and it's being pushed by some of the most influential people in tech. Ever heard of Praxis? It's a startup. Yeah, they're trying to start a city like it's a tech company that's been scouting locations around the world for what they call a techno-utopian city. The idea is simple but radical. Build a city from scratch, with its own laws, its own governance, and its own economy. A city optimized not for human happiness or democracy, but for innovation. Specifically for AI, biotech, and autonomous systems. Praxis is backed by Peter Thiel and Sam Altman. Thiel, if you don't know, is the guy who co-founded PayPal and Palantir, and he's been a vocal critic of democracy for years. Altman is the CEO of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT. Both of them believe that the future belongs to those who can move fast and break things, and that means getting rid of the red tape that slows down progress. Things like labor laws, environmental regulations, and democratic oversight. The concept they're working with is called a network state. Imagine a city where the laws are written by tech entrepreneurs instead of elected officials, where you can test experimental drugs without FDA approval, where autonomous robots can roam freely without safety restrictions, where the only rule is, does it accelerate technological progress? Now here's where Trump comes in. Trump has publicly used the term freedom cities in his 2024 and 2025 campaign rhetoric. He's talked about building new cities on federal land, cities that would operate under different rules than the rest of America, cities designed for the future. If the US acquires Greenland, it could provide the perfect canvas for this vision. Greenland is mostly empty. It's under US protection but not subject to all US laws. You could, in theory, carve out special economic zones where the normal rules don't apply, experimental laws, corporate governance, a place where billionaires can build the future without asking permission. The dossier frames this as a potential reality. Greenland could become the testing ground for private tech sovereignty, a place where Peter Thiel's vision of a corporate micronation becomes real, where Sam Altman can deploy AI systems without waiting for Congress to figure out regulation, where the future is built by those who can afford to build it, not by those who vote for it. The public narrative is innovation zones. The hidden narrative is corporate-controlled micronations, places where democracy takes a back seat to efficiency, where the people in charge aren't elected, they're invested. This is the shift from democracy to dataocracy. From rule by the people to rule by the people with the most data, the most compute, and the most control over the infrastructure of intelligence. Part 5. The 2026 Crisis, when obsession turns into threat. So where are we now? It's January 2026, and this isn't theoretical anymore, it's happening. According to the dossier, Donald Trump has stated that he would take Greenland whether they like it or not. He's framed it as a matter of economic security, not military security. Economic, that's the tell. This isn't about defending America from missiles or submarines. It's about securing the resources and infrastructure needed to win the AI race, and his supporters have run with it. There's a movement now, half joking but half serious, called a Make Greenland Great Again. They talk about Greenland becoming the 51st state. They talk about bringing American freedom and prosperity to the island. They frame it as a win-win. Greenland gets infrastructure and investment. America gets control of the future. But here's the problem. Greenland doesn't want to be the 51st state. The Danish government has repeatedly said, Greenland is not for sale. The Greenlandic government, called the Naalakkersuisut, has echoed that statement. They're not interested in being annexed, absorbed, or saved by the United States. So what's the US response? According to reports, there have been threats, specifically threats to withdraw NATO protection from Denmark if they don't cooperate. Denmark is a member of NATO, which means the US is obligated to defend them if they're attacked. But that obligation can be flexible, and Trump has made it clear that he views alliances as transactional. You give us what we want, or we walk. This is empire logic. But it's not the old kind of empire logic where you send in the Marines and plant a flag. It's the new kind, where you use economic leverage, diplomatic pressure, and the threat of abandonment to get what you want. You don't invade, you coerce. The public story is that America is protecting its allies and securing the Arctic. The hidden story is that America is willing to threaten, bully, and isolate its supposed partners in order to control the resources and geography needed for AI dominance. This is economic conquest replacing military conquest, and it's happening right now. Part 6. The human cost. Who pays for the AI empire? Let's end with the part that nobody wants to talk about. The people who actually live in Greenland. There are 56,000 people in Greenland. Most of them are Inuit. They have their own language, their own culture, their own way of life. And in all the debate about minerals and data centers and freedom cities, they're barely mentioned. They're not at the table. They're not part of the conversation. And that's not an accident. The risk here is real. If Greenland becomes the center of a global AI race, the people who live there face cultural displacement. Imagine thousands of tech workers and miners flooding into small communities. Imagine the environmental damage from large-scale mining operations, tailings ponds, chemical runoff, shattered landscapes. Imagine the noise, the pollution, the infrastructure built for machines instead of people. There's a narrative that always gets tossed around when corporations move into indigenous or rural areas. Jobs. We're bringing jobs, they say. We're bringing opportunity. And sure, some jobs will be created. But the reality of extractive economies is that they rarely benefit the people whose land is being extracted from. The wealth flows outward. The profits go to shareholders in San Francisco and Seattle and New York. The locals get low-wage labor and environmental destruction. And if the Freedom Cities concept becomes real, if Greenland becomes home to corporate micronations with their own laws and governance, then the risk is even worse. Local sovereignty gets sidelined entirely. The infrastructure gets built for servers, not communities. The energy gets used for machines, not homes. The laws get written by CEOs, not elected representatives. Greenland stops being a partner and becomes a tool. A resource to be optimized. A place that exists not for the people who live there, but for the people who want to use it. The final thread here is chilling. The future is being built. But it's not being built for everyone. It's being built for the people who can afford to build it. And the rest of us, whether we live in Greenland or Ohio or anywhere else, we're just obstacles to optimization. This is the dark secret behind America's Greenland obsession. It's not about freedom. It's not about democracy. It's not even really about America. It's about control. Control over the minerals that build AI. Control over the geography that cools AI. Control over the laws that govern AI. And control over the future itself. The question is, who gets to decide what that future looks like? And are we okay with the answer being a handful of billionaires in a frozen micronation that the rest of us will never be invited to?